Hello, I'm Véronique Bracco. I'm a French composer. I mainly compose for classical music and for stage and performances in the classical music world, but also for film music. I'm very open and very interested by different projects and to write in different styles. I play the piano since I was about 8.5. It's been the instrument of my life. I mean, I love the piano. It's like a confidant for me. And I've been touring, performing a lot, recitals, but also in chamber music or with orchestra. I've been touring quite much when I was young, and then I started a duo with violin. We recorded 2 albums and we're touring in France and in Europe. But at some point I don't know, I was missing something, and I thought I really need to find my way back to composition, to my way of expressing myself. So a few years ago, I centered again all my work and my projects on composition. Well, that's a very difficult question because I'm inspired by a lot of things and different things. It can be just a subject, like for example a context. If I'm commissioned a piece that has a very specific context, a title, a story, then of course it gives me some ideas to start with. But I'm also working a lot with images. I've always really liked to imagine images when I was performing already as a pianist. So it's about the same when I'm composing. I think I start with inventing in my head a story and have images coming to my mind. And then I try to find some music themes and some cells, rhythms that can actually fit and that I can start working with. I'm also sometimes inspired by very small things of the everyday life. For example, a bird singing, a tune in my garden, or something I see and witness in the street. I don't know, the world around me has a big impact on all my creativity. So I find sources of inspiration about everywhere around me. My instrument inspires me a lot. So sometimes I just sit down at the piano and start improvising, listening to the beautiful sound, the notes, the strings, how they resonate. And it just gives me some atmosphere to work with and to start something with. Well, I've always loved movies and cinema. It's like my second passion, so I can say that I've been inspired by it all my life. But maybe in the beginning, the music in cinema that has really impressed me the most was classical music. I remember, for example, Amadeus, the classical pieces and how they were used in the movie, how they were put together with the images and the light, the way that the film director was using music and image. It just impressed me a lot. Amadeus and Mozart, for example, made me want to start composing. And later on, there were different composers, of course, still classical musicians, because, they use a lot of classical composers in movies. For example, when I was younger, I heard the second movement of the Emperor Concerto by Beethoven, and I remember how moved I was. I didn't even know it was Beethoven back then, but it just blew my mind. And yes, I think that realizing that image and sound and music were just building up emotions together, it was something that I wanted to try and be part of. For my personal experience in film music, it started when I was about 16 years old. And someday a young director contacted me to ask me to write music on his short-length movie, Chasse et Croisette. I had a blast trying to find ways in music to make it come to life, because until then I had only composed some pieces, starting by improvising at my piano, finding a melody and starting with my own ideas and my own feelings. And for this experience, it was really different. Obviously, he gave me the images. The movie was already shot, and so I had to forget myself and find a way to express what he was trying to show. Actually, I do both. I used pen and papers since I started. And I must say that I still find a little charm to it. And also, it's quite useful because I don't always have a tablet or a computer with me. So when I start having an idea, I just write it down and I make sure that I have, some draft copies of all my ideas so I can develop them afterwards. So that's the first step. But afterwards, of course, I use the computer now and some music softwares. I think they're awesome because you can, they open a lot of opportunities. And I work a lot with Sibelius, for example. So I really like to explore all the possibilities that it gives me, also to help the writing. But I also think it's very important today because, for performers, it's much easier to read. For us, it's much easier to edit and to work with. It's very fast, so it's really efficient. Besides, with a computer, you can also, hear out of your head what you just written, have mock-ups to show to other people, and I think that's very useful today. People want to hear what you wrote, and it's a really great tool. I have always orchestrated myself all my works, whether it be for small ensembles or orchestra. I like to do it myself because I think it's very interesting to work on timbres, tones, and to the different qualities of sound of different instruments. It's something that I always loved, the sound of different instruments. As a pianist, I really like to find colors and try to make my piano sound like an orchestra. So it's the same when I compose. I like to go in the work and try to get to know more how the instruments sound, how they can blend together, how they can work, and how it can sound together, find the best possibilities. It's very interesting. I don't conduct, but I like to be part of the rehearsing process and to go, work with the performers or the orchestra or the conductor to give them maybe my vision of the piece and explain what I was meaning, how I feel about how I was writing it, what story I was trying to tell. And I think it's interesting to share together, being part of the process together with the performers. It's very fulfilling and true. I think we can come to a really good result, and it's important that we have those moments. Well, I wish I could do that every time, but of course it's not that easy. So mostly I find resources online. I listen to a lot of music from the country and from the different cultures if the project involves a different culture. I find it really fascinating to enter a different world. I like to really submerge myself in the history and in the context. It's like discovering a whole new part of way of living. So I think it's very important. I really love to explore all what the world has to offer to us. Up to now, I've never written for ethnic instruments. But this year, I'm starting to work on a great project for the three essential elements, a collective of composers and performers from different countries that I am part of. And we'll be writing some new pieces of repertoire pieces for the ancient Greek lyre. I've always loved the world and traveling and discovering different cultures. So what better way to do that than in music, writing for different instruments and cultures. I really, really can't wait to write more for different ensembles and ethnic instruments. Well, that's very difficult. I admire a lot of people, a lot of composers from the past and the present. So it's going to be very difficult because I don't know where to start, and I will forget so many. In the classical music, I would say that, of course, like I told you, Mozart has been playing a very important role for me. He started all the composing process. So he remains one of the biggest influence. And of course, I'm a pianist, so I love Chopin, and all the Romantic era is very special for me. And for example, Clara Schumann, for a woman composer, because a lot of them are just amazing and very inspiring for me. I also love Ravel, Maurice Ravel, whose, I don't know, world is so full of colors and atmospheres and work on the tone. It's really fascinating. I love to play it, and it's really important for me to, I like to try and go more also sometimes in this, impressions. And of course, Rimsky-Korsakov also for orchestrations. As for film composers, I love really a lot of them. So many. It's very difficult to find just a few names to tell you. When I was really young here in France, I think the first one was Vladimir Kosma. His music just opened a different world for me, and I thought, wow, that's something great too. I really would like to experiment, and I started listening to more soundtracks and discovering more composers, more works, and of course after that, John Williams and Danny Elfman. I love his musical universe and so creative. Rachel Portman. I love also Joe Hisaishi, or of course Ennio Morricone, Nino Rota. There are so many of them that I admire. They inspire me every day, and when I listen to their music, I just try to learn from them. This year, some more premieres of my pieces will come to life. Like, for example, a piece for violin that will be a tribute to Isaac Stern, an artist that I really admire. But also a piece for violin and harp, flute and piano, string quartet and clarinet. And I'm also working on a long-term project that I have at heart for orchestra. This year is an important step for me because my own piano method will be published at F2M Edition in France. Pedagogy has always been something I love. As a piano teacher, along the years I've composed many pieces for my students. The first book will come this spring, and the second book will come next year. And apart from the classical music project that I'm working on this year, I'm also very excited because I'll be composing with a fellow composer the music for a short-length movie, collaboration between a Brazilian director and a French writer. Great project that I'm really looking forward to. And of course, last but not least, I'm really looking forward to coming and meet you all in May at the International Ccomposers Festival. It's a great pleasure for me to come play my music, great honor to be among you all, and I can't wait to meet you.